poetry, dramatic or musical work or artistic work or sound recording others others. Objectives of Copyright Act in Bangladesh. The main objective of the Copyright Act is to encourage authors, composers, artists, and designers to create original works by rewarding them with the exclusive right for a limited period, usually for the life of the originator, plus 50 years, but in Bangladesh, yes, 50 years to exploit the work for monetary gain. Bangladesh Copyright Act contains different provisions relating to computer programs and digital media copyrights, databases, rental rights, cinema, literature-related rights, dramatic rights, musical, artistic, cinematograph, sound recording, broadcast rights, performance rights, phonograms, etc. Copyright violation facts about library materials digitization. According to American Library Association, libraries are permitted to make reproduction of copyright works for preservation and replacement purpose. And under copyright law, libraries can aid in the transformation and reproduction of copyright work for users with diabetes. Digitization systems of Dhaka University Library. From 2015, Dhaka University Library has started digitization. Basically, Dhaka University Library has been digitizing the following materials. Old newspapers. Actually, we have started our digitization program with old newspapers. Dhaka University Library is the oldest library, and only this library has the richest collection of all kinds of newspapers from the beginning of Bangladesh. Not only that, and from the beginning of Pakistan, I mean 1947 and before that time in British period. So we have immense collection of newspapers. Except actually, this is the only collection of Bangladesh. And if there is the researcher don't find newspapers in anywhere of the country, but we are trying to provide this kind of newspaper services in Dhaka University Library. So, considering this issue, so we can say Dhaka University Library has the treasury of all kinds of newspapers, old newspapers. Then MPhil thesis, MPhil and PhD thesis also. MPhil and PhD thesis, and we are covering all the research, scholars, PhD and MPhil thesis. Already we have digitized all the resources, all the MPhil and PhD thesis, and we are preserving these theses in our custody, I mean our archive, and we are providing any kind of open access services for our users from home and abroad, those who are requesting us for any disease or any kind of information here. Rare collections. We have Dhaka University Library, it has a rich collection of many rare materials which are not available in anywhere of the country. So, considering the value and importance of these rare materials, we are initiating to digitize these rare collection, because these materials are going to be destroyed, going to be unused. So that we are giving priority to reproduce these kinds of rare materials, and we are preserving these materials in our custody. Then university annual report. Dhaka University Library is publishing the annual report in every year, and from the beginning of this university, and we are ensuring to digitize all the copies of the annual report of Dhaka University published by the Dhaka University, and the researchers come to us to take the any from any take the any parts of our annual report. So we are providing the effective services for our users. This is the I think this is the credit of Dhaka University Library, that they are preserving very important researches of published in Dhaka University, and they are collecting all kinds of resources and for providing research services for our users. And another important issues, we are also covering the Dhaka University calendar for digitization. Dhaka University calendar, this is our record, I mean very important record, and we can get any authentic information, authentic news in our calendar, Dhaka University calendar. So we are copying this calendar, and we are preserving in our archive. Public proceedings. Public proceedings, I mean, there are some government proceedings, I mean parliamentary debates and gazette and any other important government documents which are available in our library, in our collection. So we are doing digitize all the public proceedings, public records, public materials for further use. There is no legal obligation to digitize. This is very important. There is no legal obligation to digitize the above collections because of these contents are truly Dhaka University's own resources. In this regard, Dhaka University Library can digitize those materials of the rare collection which have already exceeded the copyright period. And we are digitizing those materials already. Already all these materials have expired their copyright period. Copyright violation in Bangladesh. And it is very important. Most of the educational institutions in Bangladesh do not have sufficient knowledge about Copyright Act. Amongst these, some private universities, some medical colleges, government colleges, and a number of few public universities also purchases pirated books from the open market available in Dhaka city. I mean, all the bookshops in Hazrat Bakusha Hawkers Market, it is very near to Dhaka New Market, duplicating all the original textbooks, copying all the original textbook published from outside the country, and which books are more important as well as valuable. They are copying within short times, without any permission of the authority. They are copying and they are selling these books in their own initiatives, and all the shops in Bakusha market doing so. Whereas University of Dhaka, Rajshahi University, Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh Agriculture University, Chittagong University, and Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, I mean BUET, purchases books and other reading materials according to the Public Procurement Rules, PPR 2008 of Bangladesh government. So only these universities, though only few universities are collecting or purchasing books following the government rule, and they cannot purchase any pirated books or pirated copy from the open market. And this university absolutely following the government rules for purchasing, for collecting books and other reading materials. And these universities are old and renowned universities in Bangladesh who never violate the Copyright Acts. barriers of copyright enforcement in Bangladesh. There are some barriers to enforce the Copyright Act in Bangladesh. So the lack of judicial system. So this is the problem. So we have judicial system, we have rules and regulations, but there is no actual implementation. So throughout the country, we are duplicating, we are purchasing the pirated books without the sufficient knowledge, sufficient awareness of judicial system. So this is the great problem of our system. Then lack of legal framework. Still now, we do not establish any legal framework for this Copyright Act. So it is humiliated by any other bad activities by the different kinds of business men and book sellers, and they are doing according to their own uh, wishing. Then limited examination. So these rules, this framework, if the government introduce this framework throughout the country, it would be highly appreciated. But there is a problem. There is no authority to implement this legal action, this framework throughout the country. Limited protection. This is the same. There is no protective measures introduced by the government or any the respective authority of the government, so that we are doing according to our the people what are they thinking, they are doing so. Range of duration. So we don't have any we determine any actual duration of the uh, legal enforcement or the copyright framework. So the public, the people, general people do not know what should be the range of the copyright and what is should be the copyright uh, legal right of the author, legal right of the publisher, legal right of the producer. We don't know. And the range of the copyright, the 50 years or 60 years, the public do not follow, uh, want not to follow these restrictions or follow these rules. So I have heard, I have consulted some university teachers, senior professors, but they are not agreed with this system. They argument they argument with me, say, why should we go for the Copyright Act? So if I get a book within a limited price, so I cannot, why should I not go for this system? So, for example, the one medical science book, the price is on $1,000 or $2,000. So they are getting it from the Bakusha market only 500 taka. So why he should go for the original copy of the book? So this is there are many arguments in favor or against it. So lack of public awareness, and this is the actual job should be performed by the government. The public awareness should be created by the government or government authorities, and they must introduce any legal action against it. So the government are not interested to introduce, to implement this legal action or create public awareness. Non-establishment of copyright society. It is very important. So we should establish the copyright society in our country, in every country. So there is no any legal frame or uh, there is no establishment of copyright society, so that we are doing according to our wish. Nobody doesn't know what should be done in favor of the Copyright Act. Delay disposal of the case. If any person uh, just go for the legal action. So the case are not moving on time. So that the people, the author are not interested to make a case or to issue a case against the criminal or those who are duplicating the books. So this is the legal problem. This is the actual problem of our community against the Copyright Act. So there are some recommendations we have suggested. Establishment and anti-piracy force and necessary action. So this is the actual the willingness of the government. So if the government do not take necessary action against the criminal or against the people who are duplicating, who are doing piracy available in the country. So government should take initiative against them. Then proper inspection. There must be an authority, must be established an authority by the government to keenly observe, to keenly monitor, to keenly inspect the system, the copyright system, which are properly introduced, which are properly exercised throughout the country or not. Legal systems should be equipped. So we have mentioned earlier, say there are a legal system, legal framework, and the authority who will take necessary step against this type of corruption or this type of malpractice of copyright law. Mechanism must be developed to ensure speedy and cheap resolution of dispute and litigation by infringement where the existing proceedings are not well equipped. Steps should be introduced to establish a private central copyright society, which should act as ombudsman against infringement of software copyright and at the same time safeguard proper making of software and maximum license fees. In the universities, syllabus of intellectual property right should be introduced as a part of undergraduate education course to make the future information technology experts who will be aware of the Copyright Act. The people of the country creating awareness. The people of the country need to get aware of the importance of copyright law and their effects, not only on the creative and innovative thinking of the authors, but also on the national economy of the country. The government should take necessary measures to promote copyright enforcement by telling people about the harm of copyright violation. Establishment copyright course, creating awareness through seminar, symposium, and national workshop. Workshops among all the cases educated people of the country. Divisional level training. Okay. Establishment copyright course at least at the divisional level and training the judge and thus making the experts. Developing new mechanism to ensure speedy and cheap resolution of dispute and litigation by infringement. Conclusion: to protect the copyright of the creator, especially of the author, the government should come forward to enforce the rules and regulations which have been introduced in the Act of 2000 and the Amendment of 2005. Some more essential parameters are needed to incorporate in the amendments of Enforce the Copyright Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And indeed, it's a great pleasure for all of us to hear from you in your thought-provoking speech and illuminative one indeed. Now, I would request participants to please, if you have any queries, you can just ask them to our respected speaker. The forum is now open to you all. Participants, please.
Sir, may I ask one question, sir?
Of course, sir.
Sir, you have mentioned that the newspapers, MP theses, rare collection, university reports, etc. Those are digitized in Dhaka University Library. But the library, whether the library has not taken its steps to digitize the books, which are very needed for our students or researchers.
Sorry, sir.
The books which are in the library, whether those books are digitized or that step has not been taken to digitize those books.
Yes. We are doing digitizing some books, those who are assigned as rare. So I mean those books which are more demanding as well as more useful, but there are a few number of copies. So we are digitizing these materials, but considering the time frame of copyright, so we cannot digitize the materials which are within the copyright period, but crossing the copyright period, these books we can digitize.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, our faculty member, Ma'am Smita Seth, she is asking a question that the situation is almost same here, but our problem is digital dissemination of printed books. In our country, a project like NDL has started, but the situation needs quick digitization and dissemination. So how to do that?
We have a huge number of collection, I mean hard copy, but similarly, we are purchasing the huge number of e-books. So in this pandemic situation, we are providing all kinds of virtual services, I mean online library services through a software, EasyJet proxy, and we are providing our faculty members, we are providing our e-resources, I mean e-books or any kind of e-resources through this software. And they are getting services from their home or outside the university. But we don't have any option to provide the hard copy services this period.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Another question from one of our participants and our students also, Udayan
Yes.
Ghosh is asking that currently very few countries still impose formalities on copyright. Therefore, the use of such symbols is no longer a legal requirement. What is the symbol C? Do I need to include it on my own work?
Sorry, please.
He is asking a question in the chat box. It is there, sir. That is, currently very few countries still impose formalities on copyright. Therefore, the use of such symbols is no longer a legal requirement. He's saying, what is the C symbol? Means the copyright symbol is asking, do I need to include it on my own work?
Actually, Copyright Act is seriously imposed. Okay, let me check. Imposed formalities and copyright. Actually, the developed countries are imposing the Copyright Act perfectly but properly. But in our context, although we are raising the questions, we are raising our voice on behalf of copyright, but in practice, we are not implementing perfectly. I mean, it is only in paper, but practically it is very difficult to implement execute these activities, copyright activities in our context. So that sometimes we are following the perfectly following the copyright rule, but sometimes we cannot maintain this.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask another question to you, sir?
Definitely.
Sir, as you are the in charge of the library of Dhaka University also, so the question is how you have maintained the situation during this COVID period, and what are you planning to preserve the copyright issues or take care of the copyright issues in the future also, sir? Because we are into the digitization age, we know, and we are actually we are forced to have some documents, that is, we have to just scan those documents and all. Are we just infringing the copyright, or what we are doing? That I am eager to know that. If you
Dhaka University Library is a big library, I have mentioned earlier, and we have a huge number of users. I mean, more than 40,000 students, more than 2,000 teachers, and around 1,000 MPhil and PhD researchers and other researchers from the outside of the Dhaka University. So this pandemic situation, it is very difficult to provide the services for our users. But we continued our online services. But currently, we are providing all kinds of services since the COVID situation is gradually decreasing. So that we are thinking if COVID situation raise again, so how to promote our services towards our users. So that situation will say what will we do. But currently we are prepared. We are increasing our online services systems, as well as we are providing purchasing e-books, e-resources available. We have huge number of e-resources, I mean e-journal, online journal. So our researchers are not facing any difficulty, any problem for getting services according to their demand and needs. So only the academic books, I mean textbooks, there is only problem. We are not providing in this COVID situation our academic students as well as textbook services, but all kinds of research resources we are providing, immensely providing to our researchers. So that one information I am giving you, our researchers have doing a huge research in this COVID period. And I think that in another time, another simple time, another time, they are doing most research in this period than any other time.
That's indeed great news, sir. that that COVID has the positive side too, that the researchers are performing their job well. So thank you very much.
ডেফিনেটলি
Yeah.
কোভিড আমাদেরকে অনেক কিছু উপহার দিয়েছে।
Definitely,
কোভিড
yeah.
আপনার সাথে আমাকে কথা বলার সুযোগ করে দিয়েছে। এটাও কোভিডের আশীর্বাদ।
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely, sir. And thank you so much. I don't think there are any more questions, and as I couldn't find anyone from the chat box. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Professor Nasiruddin Munshi and Namaskar, sir. We are indeed very much privileged to have you among us. Such a senior faculty and so much of experience you have. It's indeed a very great pleasure for us to have you here. And thank you so much for your illuminative lecture. And it's a very great one for all our participants, I think. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Nivedita, on behalf of the Dhaka University Library, as well as Dhaka University, as well as Bangladesh, for inviting me to say something before you. And I would like to thank your departmental head, Piyush sir, and Shobus sir, and other participants, and especially to organize this kind of online seminar, webinar. And thanks a lot to other participants and the organizers, webinar organizer, and as a whole, Indian friends. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we have our next speakers also ready before us, and without any further delay, I would request our student Shangita Jana to please introduce our next speaker of this session, Dr. Shobuj Kumar Choudhury. So we are indeed privileged to have you with us, sir. So Shangita, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Shobuj Kumar Choudhury is an associate professor in the Department of Library and Information Science at the University of Calcutta, Kolkata, and selected in the prestigious WIPO WTO Colloquium for Teachers in Intellectual Property 2021, Geneva, Switzerland, and the recipient of Sastry Indo-Canadian Fellowship 2018-19 as visiting faculty in York University, Toronto. Canada worked on environmental information and socio-ecological resilience and CEU or AGSP Research Excellence Fellowship 2017-2018 at the Center for Law, Ethics and Biomedicine, the Central European University in Budapest, Hungary, and worked on patent on medical innovations. He was also selected twice in the Netherlands Fellowship Program in 2015 and 2017 in Maastricht University, the Netherlands, and in Turkey scholarships for postdoctoral research in Ankara. India from 2012, Dr. Choudhury did his PhD from Jadavpur University on the impacts of IPR on biodiversity and biotechnology in India from Jadavpur University as GRA, and a gold medalist in MSc in Marine Science from University of Calcutta, and associationship in Information Science for the National Institute of Science Communication and Information Resources, CSIR, New Delhi, with the specialization in patent of information science. He has been teaching and supervising MPhil and PhD on futuristic research agendas for several years on IPR, traditional cultural expressions, and indigenous knowledge system, in addition with his other two core research areas, sustainable development and resilience. 3 PhD and 9 MPhil have been awarded under his sole supervision. Dr. Choudhury, frequent speaker in the UGC Human Resource Development Centers of Advanced Study of several universities and in India and abroad. He has written numerous research articles, book chapters published in national and international journals on IPR. His first research article on IPR appeared way back in 2003 in the Journal of the Intellectual Property Rights, and the latest one in May 2020 in Asian Biotechnology and Development Review. His first book, Intellectual Property Rights, Biodiversity and Information System, From Basics to Challenges Ahead, published internationally from Germany in 2011. His title and introductions to fair use and copyright management of universities in India has been published from New Delhi in August 2017. That has become an important text in law and library school in India and abroad. He is the Associate Editor, African Journal of Science, Technology, Innovation and Development, published by Taylor and Francis. He is the regular reviewer of journals from De Gruyter, Taylor and Francis, and Wally. Recently in 2021, Dr. Chaudhuri published in Scientometrics and also in Journal of Scientometric Research in 2021. His article, Marine Bioprospecting and Intellectual Property, published in Springer, refers major reference work by world's largest editorial project in the field of sustainable development by Springer Nature, Switzerland AG, in its volume Encyclopedia of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Life Below Water 2021. He has completed Copenhagen Business School, Denmark in 2017. Copyrightics, the most prestigious courses on copyright in 2016 from the Bartman Center for Internet and Society in the Faculty of Law at Harvard University. US and IP procedure from Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Intellectual Property Management, Government of West India, Nagpur in 2016, and course on general IPR from the WIPO Academy, Geneva in 2009. He was also the principal investigator on the UGC research project on copyright completed in 2013. Dr. Chaudhuri, a former civil servant in West Bengal Civil Services, he has served as a member of Book Selection Committee, member in the Implementation Committee for Knowledge Commission, member in the Qualitative and Quantitative Survey in the Department of Mass Education Extension and Library Services. Government of West Bengal for 5 years. Dr. Chaudhuri is a staunch naturalist, passionate music lover and bibliophile. He enjoys traveling and also a connoisseur of culinary arts. Now I will request sir to please continue with his valuable lecture. Please, sir.
So thank you, Sangita, for your very generous introduction. And I'm really honored to be here. I want to thank Department of Library Information Science, Vidyasagar University, and head of the Department of Library Information Science, Vidyasagar University, Professor Piyush Kantijana, and Dr. Nivedita Bhattacharya, who has invited me. Especially, I want to give thanks to all of them, all faculties of this department. So thank you so much for having me here. So let me share my slide first. Is that visible?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah.
It is visible.
Now is it full screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I have chosen this topic. The topic is quite interesting and very close to my heart too. So I have chosen this topic's impact of copyright. Copyright has a profound impact on digital archiving. So I have chosen this particular topic, impact of copyright on creations, maintenance, and use of digital archive. The first disclaimer, as you know, this copyright and intellectual property right is a highly legal, techno-legal area and highly legally infested area. So this disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, I cannot give any legal advice. First, I'll be discussing very briefly. We'll have a very brief tour on copyright. Then we'll have a very brief discussions on the technical aspects of the digital archive, and then we'll focus on the issues that connects these two entities. Because if we have a better understanding of this copyright and the digital archive, only then we can do some justice of these issues, and it will help us to understand the connectivity better. So let's start with this copyright first. What is intellectual property? Copyright is a type of intellectual property rights. What is IP? IP is primarily, the name suggests, which is coming from human intellect, is actually intellectual property. And the rights conferred, rights means it's a legal rights, conferred over this intellectual property is called intellectual property rights. And these rights normally provides by the government or the society. There are different aspects of the intellectual property rights. Primarily, it's classified, earlier it was classified before 1995. I would not focus on much on the legal aspects, okay? So primarily, I will focus on the functional aspects so that our discussions can be limited within the time frame given. So intellectual property rights, primarily before 1995, it was classified normally as the two types. One is the industrial property and the artistic and literary property. Our today's discussions will focus on this copyright. But for your better understanding, sui generis system, because in the sui generis system, a database rights, a new rights, because the world community has decided to extend these IP rights over many other intellectual entities, say for a plan for IT, and then database rights, and then integrated circuits, what we colloquially called as a chip. So database rights, some way it's connected with copyright. Still in India is providing any database protections measure via this Copyright Act, and other European nations, including UK, they are giving their own database rights. There is a different act for that, but still now we do not have any database rights act in India. So our focus will be focused on the copyright. And this industrial property primarily contains this patent, design, trademark, and then geographical indications and the confidential information, what we colloquially call the trade secret. But artistic and literary property contains only one thing, that is a copyright and neighboring rights. And neighboring rights primarily zeroing in on this performer rights, broadcasters right. So these are the rights. So let us focus on the copyright. What is a copyright? Copyright is a type of intellectual property rights, as I said earlier, and it is given to the creator. Creator is a neutral term, so it can be given to an author, different authors, producers, photographers, any artist for their literary and artistic works for a limited period of time. Earlier it was 50, right now it's a 60, and after that it goes to public domain. So that is the basic understanding of a copyright, which is given for a limited period of time. That's 60 years in India, and after that it goes to public domain. So different works under this copyright, say for a literary, including software database, artistic, dramatic, musical, sound recording, cinematography, films. You know it all. So what are the criteria to get a copyright? Fixation. First criteria is a fixation. Second one is a originality, and third one is a minimal creativity. This third criteria is a little debatable parameter. Why I'm calling it a little debatable parameter? See this. Would you please say that slides are changing? Are being changed? Properly?
Yes, sir. They are changing, sir.
Okay.
Perfectly all right.
Oh, sometimes it happens. Doctrines of originality, because this concept, the concept of this minimal creativity starts with English civil law. So because almost all our rules, laws, and acts primarily influenced and inspired from the British Act. So even 20 years back, I can recall 20 years back, we used to provide these creativity aspects based on this UK law. That's the suite of the broad doctrine, where to get a copyright on any particular work, you did not to be exceptionally original. The criteria, what we regard as a novelty criteria in a patent case. Okay, in a patent case, you after application, your patent applications is examined very critically by the patent examiner. But in case of this copyright works, when you submit your works for copyright registration, but however, copyright registrations is not mandatory here. Almost all countries there is no mandatory, but registration is always suggested. If you apprehend that in the future your work might be copied, your work might be, or your copyright might be violated. So in that case, copyright registrations is always important and suggested, because to prove in the court of the law, prima facie, it would be very helpful if your copyright work is registered. Okay, so that's a different issue. I will let you know a little bit about on it. But we used to follow this suite of the board doctrine. But after this 20 years, within the last 20 years, what happened, the change happens in the silently in our act, in the Copyright Act, is a modicum of creativity doctrine. Because in the United States, the copyright originality factor or the important parameter actually is a very strong parameter. So that's a minimal creativity to our strong creativity. So what we have chosen right now in our act, though it is not written, but a copyright examiner normally checks our works when we submit our works for registrations. They check from that in between. I mean, a synthesis of these two doctrines, which is called the doctrine of merger, is not exceptionally original, or it is not in earlier case so casual and amateuristic work. So now we are following this minimal creativity term for getting copyright. That's a very debatable, because its limit is highly debatable. What are our neighboring rights? I told it: performers, producers, phonograms, broadcasting organizations. There is another debate comes. Sometimes it happens. The idea and expression dichotomy. There is a huge dilemma, confusions, and lots of debate in the jurisprudence that idea. Sometimes we understand the idea. Some may ask this question: is idea is copyrightable? No, idea is not a copyright. I can give you a very practical example. Suppose one book is written, a history book is written, say for an Indian national movement. Okay. And then Indian national movement, say, starting from the 1905 to 1947. So within this period, the factor of the subject and the content is fixed, and the same content can be written by three authors. Subject might be same, but their expression should be different. And this is why the exact subject of the idea of the content is not copyrightable. On the expression is copyrightable. That's a very important point to understand the copyright. And these are the few copyright nature. Copyright is primarily a negative right, like other IP rights. Why is it being called negative rights? Because when you are getting copyright, if you are saying that it's a copyrighted work of myself, that means it is implied that nobody can use this copyrighted content in question without my permission. Until I give you permission, you cannot work properly or legally. So that from that way, it's a negative right. At the same time, it's a positive right. Because if we do not carry out, if we do not execute a copyrighted work or the rights, then what will happen? No publisher will publish your books, your any copyrighted content, because in that case, everything is a free right. So copyright in that case, copyright is giving economic benefits, and this is why it's also positive. It's a time bound. Here is a 60 years and a territorial. It's a very important point. It's a territorial. Copyright is not a single right. Copyright is a bundle of rights. It's a distribution right, reproduction right, selling right, translations right, all. And no copyright is given on ID. As I said, it's a bundle of rights. Reproductions, derivative works, adaptations, translations, communications to public, distribution, etc., etc. So durations of the works, more or less, almost all works, 60 years, but only in case of the literary works or musical or the dramatic artistic works, After the expiry of the last author, it will carry out, your copyright will stand up to 60 years. And the 60 years would be counted. Suppose on the last author, maybe the book is written by 4 authors. Say the last author is expired on November 1, 2021. So that 60 years would be counted from the January 1, from the next year, January 1, to up to 60 years. What kind of rights? Primarily, copyright gives you 2 kinds of rights. One is the economic rights, another one is the moral rights. Economic rights is a very interesting right because you can sell it, you can assign it, you can transfer it, or you can also reserve it for yourself. You may not give it to anyone because it's a kind of property. You cannot give it to anyone if you think so. And the moral rights is far more interesting, and implication is highly important in this case because moral right is not transferable. It's a moral rights is the kind of thing. Just try to imagine when you are writing a book, the book is your brainchild. It is called a brainchild. That means your work is umbilically connected, emotionally connected with the creator. Emotional connectivity between the creations and the creator is actually the moral rights. When you sell your copyrighted content, when you are selling, when you are transferring, still your moral right will never cease to happen. So it will always remain with the creator. That's a very important point, moral rights. It never ceases to happen. It always lies with you. And let me discuss a few important terms regarding this copyright. There's one is assigning, licensing. When we write something, some article or some books, we transfer copyright. And that is a very interesting point. Suppose one book is written and everybody is excited. So with that excitement, you write and sign. But what happens? We sign immediately. It's like it's like a LIC document. When you are subscribing to any LIC scheme, life insurance scheme, there are very small font letters or small sentences are written as a terms and condition. Hardly we bother to see, and hardly we afford to see all those small letters. But God forbid, if anything wrong happens, immediately that smallest letter becomes so magnified. After that, that organization says, no, you are not going to get a money. So hardly we bother to see all these terms and conditions. So next time you sign to any copyright agreement to any author, any publisher, try to tell him explicitly written, because most of the cases, publisher normally writes here, copyright and subsidiary right. Once you, as I already said, that copyright is a bundle of rights. So what happens? Few unscrupulous publishers, not all publishers, some unscrupulous publisher, they actually put your reproduction right, distributions right, reprint right, and then dramatic and artistic and other, if there is an evidential value regarding this dramatic or any kind of possibilities to make a film over your drama or a novel, what you have written. So all rights will be embedded in the subsidiary rights. So before you write next time, you always consult your copyright expert or the publisher. Tell him to just explicitly write what exact right you want to transfer from myself to you. Okay, so that's a very important thing. Very wrong thing happens with these publishers, with the creator. It's a real bone of contention. And most important term is assign and licensing. In the technical terms, in the legal term, assigning your copyrights technically means you are outrightly selling your copyright to somebody else. A licensing means a permission with some terms and conditions, permissions for a limited period of time. And any person wants to make any adaptation, derivative works, transformative works, compilations, translations, for every kind of works that might be stemmed up from your copyrighted content, is actually will have a copyright. Or you can also, as I said, reserve the rights, because it's your property, it's your own discretion whether you are going to sell it, rent it, derivative any profits, or you may not give it to anyone. As I told you, this is a subsidiary rights. Copyright basically is a permission. Most important thing is when you are thinking about the permissions. Very recently, I was also involved in searching permission cases for one of my marine science department. He was writing a book for Elsevier. Very difficult to find out image owner. Okay. So determining if permission is needed, identify the owner, identify the rights needed, contact the owner, negotiate, payment is required, get your permission agreement. This is very important before producing or generating any content. I will not go to the legal sides of this international copyright protection, just for letting you know that India is already member of different international agreements and acts, including this. The oldest one is the Berne Convention. So our work, there is no international copyright. But what happens, virtually we get the international protection. International protection, vice versa. Suppose there are contracting parties, say for 190 parties of some member nations participate in the Berne Convention or 128 into some another treaties. So any protected work, any copyrighted work in the member countries will be protected. So I say for India's work will be protected in US, and US works will be protected in India too, because all are contracting members. It's a part of the ratifications of this agreement and rules. So another interesting point is like this Federal Court of Law, Indian Copyright Act 1957 also provide in section 17C, works for hire. Very simply, in a very simple language, suppose you are working for somebody else, somebody's organizations, say for our, including our university or a college, when you are writing something which is a part of our job, the first owner of that copyright is that school, college, university, or academic institutions, or research organizations, wherever you are working to. In our section 51, and it's a very interesting as well as very important for this purpose, today's discussions, because when any persons without a license granted by the owner of the copyright, the registrar or the registrar of the copyright does anything the exclusive right to do, which is by act conferred upon the owner of it. That means you are infringing. Without any permission means you are infringing. And making infringing copies for sale or hire, distributing infringing copies for the purpose of trade, public exhibition, importations of infringing copies, and permitting any place for performance of work in public. So these are the different sections and subsections by which you can understand in which way there is a possibility of copyright infringement of copyrighted content. And it is laid in section 51. This safety valve of copyright fair use, section 52, which is most important for our teaching learning community, because this is our safety valve and this is our kind of section that can help us to put ourselves in the right side of it. And there are, it actually Indian law, in Indian law, we are saying that is a fair dealing, but in the US law, there is a fair use. What is the difference between the fair use and the fair dealing? Fair dealing means it's a enumerative list. What kind of works may not violate, and in which kind of participating in which kind of works or activities may not putting yourself in the wrong side of the law. These are enumerations or enumerative list. But in the case of a federal case, federal law, it's a very interesting and quite logical, in my opinion, because there is no enumerative list. It is just based on a case-to-case basis. So for our teaching learning community, for say for the purpose of research and private study, for criticism of review, but this is not absolute. There are lots of terms and conditions. Due to the lack of time, I will not be able to discuss all these things. But this is the most important sections in Indian Copyright Act for our academic community, teaching learning community. In connection with the judicial proceedings, any reproduction of copyrighted works in teaching, learning process, making question by teachers and answers by pupils, and maximum 3 copies for the use of public library, reproduction of unpublished work kept in a museum or library for the purpose of study and research. So when you are thinking that whether I'm in a right side or wrong side of the law, there is one test. Just I'm letting you know, there is a PNUM testing: purpose, nature, amount of marketing, and then marketing. I mean, marketing and marketing impact. So PNUM testing is important. In the copyright, all rights is up. There are three philosophies, you know. One is the copyright. As I said, this is copyright content means this is your property, like your physical property, like your flat, like your car, like any physical things. Okay, so you can sell it or you can keep all the rights reserved for you. So it's up to you. And another philosophical, you know, underpinnings is a Creative Commons, where you can keep some rights with you and you can share some rights with the society. And it is a very good for a developing nations like us. And it was developed by Lawrence Lessig. He's also Harvard alumni and Harvard professor. And the public domain, you know it very well. No rights is up. But there is a myth, whatever is available in the internet is a public domain. It is absolutely incorrect, because if there is no such statement written over there for that purpose, that means it's a public domain or not. That material, you cannot say definitely this is a public domain works. There must have some, you know, kind of statement regarding that. Yes, this is a public domain work. Otherwise, you cannot call it a public domain work. And there is a huge debate on it. Copyright infringements. When how do you define this copyright infringements? Primarily, the striking similarity and the idiosyncratic element. Very similarly, you know, right now this computer programs comes under this Copyright Act, Indian Copyright Act. The copyright creator, programmer, original programmer, intentionally embed some bugs or some errors inside that computer program, so that he can prove in the court of the law if there is any tussle between an appellate authority and any other person who is claiming the ownership of that program. The original creator, most of the cases, keeps that bug to prove his originality or authenticity as the creator. So striking similarity and the idiosyncratic elements, same errors, fictitious entries, all this work in the favor of this original copyright owner, by which we can identify this is a copy or the fake one. So we all know how we use our copyrighted content for our academic community. I will not elaborate on it. So what are the remedies available for it? Most interestingly, for all these IP components, say for patent design, trademark, geographical indication, trade secret, plant breeders, in almost all cases, only civil cases are available, but only in case of this copyright, it is dealt by, along with the civil cases, Indian Penal Code, IPC, that's a criminal procedures can be started if there is a copyright violation. So what are the civil remedies? Injunction, damages, accounts, cost, criminal cognizable offense, up to 3 years imprisonment and 2 lakh fines. So this is in a lucid way, very small understanding or little understanding of this copyrights. Let us try to understand these technical aspects of the digital archive. Access drives archiving. Because, you know, what are the difference between the records and the archives? Archives also kept records, but the records, there is a life cycle of a records. At the end of the life cycle, either it is destroyed or it goes to an archive. Why we archive something? We archive something just because we as a society, we understand it has a cultural value, evidential value, historical value, or any kind of value that we value. Okay, for that value, we keep something, we want to keep something for the future generation to retain, so that we can access it in the future, or some in the future, near future, on the sometimes we can also access that material digitally, and we can access and use that materials for the benefit of the society. So access is most important thing. Access drives archiving, and it is the responsible. It is the most responsible factor for archiving, be it a normal traditional archiving or a digital archiving per se. So as I said, all archives are records, but not all records become archives. And these are the language variants available in the world. Most of there are UK, as India was a colony under the British. So most of the cases we use this digital archiving or digital preservation terms. Digital archiving as a term is very popular in the UK and the Allied nations and the European nations, digital preservation, and these two terms, these are digital curations and the digital stewardships in the North America is very popular. So almost all are the same thing with a little and a slightly different between all this. We all know there are two types of digital materials. If you want to have some digital archive, so we have to preserve. Actually, digital archiving is a process, and digital archive is our the manifestation, final, or the culminations, output. So digital archiving and the digital preservation process, more or less similar term. So what is that? When we are trying to preserve a digital content or digital objects, born digital or not born digital, if you want to convert a book or analog book or a printed book to a digital copy, we want to have, there are lots of procedure. Most important is scanning or taking some pictures and using the OCR and making some electronic document. At the end, and there is a born digital and the made digital or a not born digital comes together for the digital archiving. If we find it is important for our society, we will preserve it for the long-term retention in the digital archive. So there are different types of formats, contents. Okay, primarily we focus on this textual material, audio, video material, and the image. And another content is also there because that's a real data which is coming from our satellite. That is important because the de facto standard for this digital preservation is a open archival information system that was developed by CCSDS, Consultative Committee for Space Research System by NASA. This digital archiving conceptual framework that was developed not by any librarian people, not by any other technological people or archival people. It was developed for the preservation of real-time data by the CCSDS of NASA, and it was developed in the 1996. So more or less, we are using right now for our library purpose or a normal societal purpose, we use this kind of contents, textual content, audiovisual content, and image. But beginning, it was started with the real data preservations from the satellites, and the different file formats are there for the different contents. And the digital preservation has three aspects. There is a triad. It's called a triad. First one is management. Management speaks in favor of the planning for the long-term retention and the content properties. And the technology primarily focus on these open archival information systems, and then metadata standards, metadata formats, and the trusted depository, its standards and certifications. And the content, third one, most content important for our today's discussion, that's a content primarily based on the copyright, access rights, and then authenticity. Most important is authenticity. These aspects are normally dealt in the content aspect. So these are the triads within which the digital preservation discussions are limited. It's a risk management. And the most important thing for a digital preservation, for archiving, digital archiving, when we are putting something, we are ingesting something, because it's a technological term, ingestion. It's very similar to biology. When we are entering into our gut, it's called ingestion. So ingestion, when we are entering or submitting or depositing something to our digital archive systems, that based on the conceptual framework of OAIS, we always want to have a similar look and feel of the original document. Okay. So in case of this original document, I'll be discussing little on it because these notions of originality and the concept of this authenticity is completely needs to be redefined in case of the digital documents. Because, in the digital documents, what happens, in the physical documents, it's a physical aspects. You can check it's a physical, different properties, how long it is, how it is written, whether the paper is acidic or not. So the different physical aspect there, in addition to the visual aspects. But in case of the digital documents, we normally think about the visual aspect of the particular document. That actually manifests or the same look and feel appeal. How can we keep that? That is the greatest challenge in the digital preservation of the digital archiving. Bitstream preservation, the kind of look or similar look and feel appeal is actually if you go to the close examination, or if you scrutinize the whole issue and post-mortem the whole issue, you will find that it is at the end, you will find at the atomic level, it's a 0 and 1. It's a sequence of bit. What we call it's a bit stream. Bit stream, original bit stream is responsible for the content type, content look and feel appeal, like say for a font size, color, and the shape and everything. So we need to preserve the original bit stream, what was available with the original document, as we are thinking so. And another most important thing is a logical preservation. Logical preservation is a technological environment, the hardware and the software that we require to manifest or to render that original information. So we have to preserve both. We have to preserve the same bit sequence or a bit stream, at the same time the device or the software by which that information would be understandable or can be rendering. So we need to preserve both bit stream as well as logical preservations. As I said, notions of originality has to be redefined in case of a digital document, because physical decay, when we are thinking of the physical document, decay of physical material, the physical object happens very gradually. Even I have seen one document in Italian library which is 500 years old, but still it is readable. Still it is readable. But in case of a digital document, there is a binary answer of this existence or not existence. Either you can read it or you cannot read it. There cannot be in between any stages. Okay. So proprietary versus open file formats are issues are there. We'll be discussing in our concerns about these connectivity issues. And the ubiquity is basically the kind of format we should preserve, which is used most of the or majority of the people in our society. Ubiquity. Risks. What kind of risks we need to cover? That is, do you want to cover the digital decay, and then bit rot, and the technological obsolescence? These are the primary risks that we need to cover by having a digital archiving or digital preservations. These are the models that I was talking about. So these are the detailed model. I will not go to the detail. Just for your understanding, 3 stages are there. One is a producer or a submitter or a giver, what can come use, but normally we use in the digital preservation producer. And we are sending any digital content as a SIP. SIP means submission information package. And you just think or imagine imaginary box kind of things, which is archives. The content will be archived and it will be saved. It will be archived as an archival information package. When it will be accessed by somebody else or some patron or a client, that will be said as a DIP, dissemination information package. So there are 3. There are 3 of the same content, but 3 manifestations. One is a SIP, when you are entering. When it is being preserved as a AIP, archival information package. When you are sending to the user as a dissemination information package. So what is the information package? Information package is primarily contains 2 types of information. One is a content information. Another one is a preservation description information. This preservation description is the most important for our purpose, because there are 5 kind of informations are embedded. What are those? There's the provenance informations, and then reference information, fixed information, context information, access rights information. The first one is the provenance information. This reservation description information is basically a metadata standard format for a digital preservation or a digital archiving. Yes, there are 2 other formats available, say for a premise and mates, and they have also respected this access rights information, their own scheme. But this one is the most popular one because it's the de facto standard. Provenance information gives you the directions of authenticity because it speaks on the origin of the information. When we purchase some land from somebody else, when you go to the registry office, it asks you the chain deeds. So very similarly, in the provenance information, it clearly tells the chain of custody of this information. So provenance information, if you have an understanding of the provenance information, you can understand better understanding over authenticity issues. So digital preservation and trust is important. I will let you know later regarding this why this trust is important. So these are the digital archive, a trusted digital repository, which is primarily a digital archive. This capture information creators and managers, and then capture, and then as I said, 2 things are important: bitstream, logical, reservation management, access, and information users. The transformations that you require, preservation strategies. 2 strategies are there. One is a migration, another one is a emulation. Migration, when we're transforming the file formats from one file formats to another file formats. In the beginning, I told you there are standard file formats that you require, proprietary or open file formats. Normally, we recommend the different file formats for the digital archiving. Say for most important example is a PDF and PDF. Normally, we are accustomed to use our documents in PDF. But if you go and find in our normal laptop and computer, there is a possibility to save your document as a PDF/A. A means archive. Okay. It will clearly say it's archival purpose, because if there is any copyrighted content, because a document might contain a copyrighted image, copyrighted font, and copyrighted audio video things, that will be completely deleted. And if you are ready for that, it will be set as PDP. So that's a migration. Migration is important for the long-term retention. And primarily, we decide on that migration issues to avoid the copyright cases. We want to avoid these copyright confrontations. And then second one is emulations, when we are recreating our environment. Suppose you are saving your document in say for a 2010 versions of the MS Word, you will find that there is a possibility, or there is a you can explore the possibility in the menu box. You can save your document in 2003 to 2007 because it can gives you that compatibility. Suppose you are having one document which was openable, say for a Millennium issue, and it's a Windows operating system. Right now, it's not being open. What you need to do, what we have to do, we have to actually recreate that environment. So that's an emulation. Normally, we use that emulator in the video games, but that is the basic thing, that you have to recreate the environment where this content was openable. And another point is there that is most advanced, that is when you are getting some content, digital content, that technological environment is also embedded with it. And it becomes platform independent. That means you need not to find what kind of technological environment is needed to open your file. Suppose you are downloading some software or apps to open a particular document kind of things. It is already available and it is embedded within that, and it's a technology neutral and the platform independent. That's another process. Is the advanced process. It's called a third process is encapsulations. I have not written over here, but it's the advanced stage. Authenticity is the most important aspects, as I told you, preservations. And the digital preservation, there are 4 steps. First one is a manifestation. Manifestation means you are making an inventory, what needs to preserve. And obviously, based on the value that you value for the future. And then quarantine and check the documents, whether there is any bit rot or corruptions or not, by using the one software, checksum checker. And the preservation, you preserve it, file format transformations, migrations, emulations, if needed, and storage it. So these are the 4 steps. So let's talk about our goal, that's copyright concern, how these 2 issues are connected. So beyond our analog documents, how these digital documents can be archived, and how this copyright issue would influence and impact this archiving process. First thing first, copyright law is equally applicable, because there is a question whether this copyright law is available in the internet or the technological environment. Answer is absolutely yes. In the complexity of the digital objects, identifying the ownership, establishing the copyright, enforcing the copyrights is a very difficult thing. It's a very interesting case of this Castaway. It was published by Bob Merrill Company, the first cell doctrine, the first issue, actually. The first cell doctrine, most interesting for the digital archiving. It has a great impact on these digital archiving purposes. First cell doctrine. The case was started in 1908. The book was published by Bob Merrill Company, The Castaway. Very interestingly, they have given one notice after this copyright notice that the book should not be sold for less than $1, and the sale for less constituted copyright infringement. Nowhere it is written. Earlier, nobody has seen such kind of notice, because publisher is telling that you cannot sell this book beyond, less than $1. If you do that, you are infringing copyright. So another company or some people, Isidore Strauss and Nathan Strauss, these are company partners. They have purchased these books and they sold that book less than $1. And the court case came to the federal court, the US federal court, and that case was heard, and finally a verdict came out of the federal court. And that case is known as a 1908 Supreme Court decision. Bob Merrill's company was changed. And what is the outcome? And that outcome has a real impact on our today's discussions, because first sale doctrine gives us the right to sell, resell, and then lend and share the material. Because when you are purchasing some book, and this is why our second-hand book market is available. When you are purchasing some book, you are the owner, legal owner of that book. You can sell it, you can share it, you can lend it. And this is why we in the library can lend our books. So that is the beginning. So you have purchased it, you own it. But why libraries and digital archives cannot freely lend the digital content? Because, as I told you, the concept of originality in case of the digital content has completely needs to be redefined. Because in the physical book, we purchased that book. But in case of the digital documents, we could not actually purchase. It was licensed. Almost all digital documents, be it books, articles, or database, whatever we have in our digital archive or our library, we cannot do that. We cannot do that to distribute that, just because we do not have any such permission. Okay, so this is why it is not possible, because it's a license. You are not the owner. Difference between the sale and license. Sale means you are the owner. License means you are licensee. You have got a permission to use that material. And beyond that limit or permissions and terms and condition is copyright, would tantamount to copyright infringement. That is the most important thing to be counted. No digital first sale doctrine is available. And that is the moot point here in this case, because the digital document, when you are giving your physical book to your friend or to your client in the library or any user from the digital archive, traditional archive. So in that case, for giving or lending to that book or sharing that book, you need not to make a copy. You need not to make a photocopy. You are giving your own copy. But in case of a digital document, when you are distributing, disseminating in the digital documents, you are actually reproducing that copy, very similar copy, and in the similar environment, it can be sustained for indefinite period of time. So this is why digital fast cell doctrine is not available nowhere in the world. And digital distributions means, as I said, is actually a reproduction. A reproduction is not allowed in fast cell doctrine. Only distributions of your legal copy or reselling of your copy or lending your copy, sharing your copy is allowed. No reproduction is allowed in fast cell doctrine. That is the most important issue that needs to be dealt in the digital archive. And debating point is, very recently, I found one debating point. I thought that it would be very helpful to share with you, because if we, in this debate, if we develop one kind of technology, say for hypothetically, that after sharing one copy, your copy will be completely vanished by your machines. If it is possible, hypothetically, just think and imagine. But still, that copyright office is not convinced. Why copyright copy? Not convinced. In their opinion, fast cell was limited to physical artifact. Physical copies degrade with the time, but not the digital information. Another issue for the digital archiving regarding this copyright, pay per use. And the government cannot decide on it, because copyright is a privatization of the right. Commodifications of the common right to private right. This is another debate, actually, another part of the jurisprudence. And it is beyond the discussions point of today's lecture. So pay-per-use model, some companies, some publishers are using, or some archiving may use, and government has nothing to say on it. They can give you the guidelines only. So what can be done with this? So we have to think about it. As I say, transformations. Transformations are normally two types: migrations and emulations. In case of migrations, in both the cases, if you are migrating, that means a file formatting changing. Say there are two things. One is for preservation purpose, another one is a reuse purpose. Most of the cases, both the cases you are infringing. Both the cases you are infringing the copyright of the copyrighted owner. But if the preservation purpose, if you can manage in that, not in a wrong state, you can convince the copyright owner, yes, I am preserving your material for the future or long-term retention, for future use for the next generation, he might be convinced or she might be convinced. But for reuse, this copyright is not allowed. It's basically infringing. So migration is very difficult until you settle the copyright case. As I told you, the copyright migration, and this is why I try to connect these two issues together. Just try to understand this. There are three stages. One is a producer, is a SIP. Second one is a AIP, and third one is a DIP. Submission information package, archival information package, and dissemination. In all three cases, in all three stages, you can carry out your migrations. Okay. That depends on which stage you want to get that copyright issues clear, because it is also very cost expensive and then time consuming also, and very harder factor to develop a digital archive. So based on your organizational priority, you can go for it. You can migrate your material digital content in the acceptable or recommended file format in the migration stage, the ingest stage. Second, on the archival stage, or on access or the DIP stage. It's up to you. But whatever the case, you need to settle the copyright case before you give it to the user. In the emulation case, still now, including our India, almost all countries do not permit this preservation and reuse. It is fully copyrighted. And we all are aware about these digital rights management. Digital rights management is another technological barrier by which a digital content is fully identified, who is the copyright owner, by using this DOI, digital object identifier. which is actually a persistent identifier that makes this rights aspect more granularized. Say, for one journal might have five articles, and the 5 articles will have 5 DOI, and just to find out your document as well as to get the royalty, and to make the situation worse. This digital rights management is not a single technology; it's a group of technology. Adobe Digital, what we use in this library, is the most important in endless connectivity. In all colleges and universities, we are having this endless, primarily colleges. We can find that Adobe Digital is using it, and which is against of our any digital archive and the philosophies of library. No rights, no preservations. In some cases, an interesting things came in very recently, that some titles are available in term limited licensing basis. Many titles, obviously digital titles, are being offered for sale to the librarians. But in this case, how this access management, access rights would be managed, it is still unsure. It's our latest case because it's contradictory to the digital document. Metadata for rights and permissions, as I said, in the PRFCA or a preservation description information, that is a metadata standard format for the OAIs. The last one is the access rights information. It gives you the understanding who is the original owner of this copyright or what are the access right points of the terms and conditions. But it can give you a little bit help, but still it cannot solve the whole issues because copyright permission is required. Archiving is copying. You know, when you are submitting anything in the digital archive, you are actually reproducing the copy. That's a part of the copying. Archival licensing is a new thing which is coming up based on this Creative Commons licensing. And here, digital archivists, digital preservationists have started adopting the CC licensing, like those using CC licenses. And both are licensor depositors and licensee users of how copyright licensing works and what is being granted by the licensors. These are important. Archivists need to have a good understanding of the licensing, sale aspects, the CC licensing. There are different choices, kind of choices available for the deposits, kind of choices available for the access. Say for the deposit, is the archive going to target specific types of sources of digital work, accept a range of digital works, what kind of access condition required for the access, and another TNC. So these are the things. And for the both cases, whether your digital archive would act as a licensor or a licensee or an unlicensed intermediary, are the licenses are going to be used by modified, unmodified Creative Commons licenses, bespoke licenses, or make a combination of these two? So these are the question always remains before designing creations of any digital archive. Authenticity, another most important aspect of the issue, because this is why I told you the trust is important. Why should I believe digital archive? I'm a user. I want to have this digital because digital archiving. Most important thing is not a charity endeavor like our what society believes in the library. Digital archiving in the most of the cases, it needs some kind of payment, and that means money. Some way of money is required. So that means authenticity. So user always want to know whether the document that I am going to access or what I'm trying to access is the authentic one, the most reliable one. And this is why I told about this trusted one. What kind of trust you require while you are providing some access to the digital information or digital objects. 3 kinds of. Whether trusted digital content, that means whether digital content, the same bit streams are there or not. And the depositor or submitter's trust, and that is also based on that copyrighted content or not. And the user's trust, whether that material is fully copyright free or not. Because after getting or after accessing anything, if I need to copyright permission for use, certainly it's of no use, and nobody will be interested to access those digital archives. So these way 3 trusts are important. And digital signature can come for a great help to solve these issues, because if the author or the creator or the legal stakeholders for any digital content, if they can digitally sign over it, to some extent, this problem can be solved. And a few issues I thought to share, because it's a still, law always helps, because technology and law has a very intricate connectivity, because technology always advanced and law always follows technology, because our law needs to be advanced and needs to be updated to catch up with the technology, because our digital documents, as I said, has to be redefined from the different perspectives, from the different layer in several ways. So in that case, accessing to the digital content and using the document without having any copyright problem is really very difficult. And the original digital document cannot always be defined easily, as I told you, very difficult. And the digital documents do not have a fixed appearance or sometimes even documentary form. So it's a quite foggy enough. And lots of debate, lots of brainstorming is required. So understanding copyright risks in digital preservation before beginning the creation and the developing and the design stage of digital archiving, you need to assess, you need to fathom this copyright risk. What kind of risk and how far that risk can be covered by using your policy framework, that should be checked out. Future proofing, planning and implementing a medium long-term copyright strategy even before the archive is established, and handling copyright archiving preservation perspective, clear understanding of the copyright risks that the particular archive faces. You can anticipate. You have to be very imaginative. And this will require risk assessment as early as possible in the developmental process. Information gathering and risk assessment. Try to gather as much information as possible, because different information can make you empowered. So things to be taken care of: verify copyright protection before putting into the digital archive, copyright protection, conspicuous attribution, fair dealing exceptions, check license terms, move to open source material as far as possible, review the trademark and publicity, because somehow this is also connected. As it is beyond the today's discussion, I could not discuss these trademark issues, because trademark issues are also connected with this, because some books, some publishers' trademarks are also used. So you have to check that trademark terms and conditions, incorporate notices, private use, education and sharing restrictions, include restrictions, terms and conditions, user agreements, and most important is for our universities and the organization, research organizations, prepare IP-based digital archival policies for the universities and organizations. And for a better tomorrow, digital archiving cannot be an afterthought of information management, but should be taken into account at the design stage of any information system. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'll be very happy to have your questions.
Thank you so much. Indeed, sir, you have made such an exhaustive and such an illuminative presentation, and for very nice deliberation of yours. We are indeed grateful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation. And let us take a few questions here, sir. As I am getting it from the chat box. A question from a student, from one of our students, he's asking that in the digital era, we are on social media platforms and also in the public domain, and may therefore be widely used by anybody without the authorization of the right owner. Can I freely use works published on the internet?
Yeah, very good questions indeed. Anyway, just let me tell you, whatever we post, whatever we email, whatever we post in any social media, including Facebook, and ResearchGate, academia.edu, WhatsApp, everything is copyrighted. If we try to find out in a stricter sense in India, because India is doing a very hard work and a very good job on the copyright field. And as you said, and as I also said in my discussions, that if you want to use any public domain material, That is the most important thing. It is always suggested, it also always advised us. What happens, whatever is available in the internet is not copyright free or a public domain material. So until you find it is clearly written, it is clearly stated that there is a copyright free or a public domain material, one must not use. Just to put yourself in the right side of the law. That is my advice.
Thank you so much, sir. There is another question from one of the participants, Murugan Krishnan. He's asking what type of techniques are used for digital archiving, mostly like for the academic libraries. He's asking.
You see, as I said, the digital archive can be local in your library, in a college or university, you can develop. And you can also the same conceptual framework as I discussed in the open archival information system. And it is a technology neutral and conceptual framework you can develop, because there is a provisions you can extend for a larger library, big library, or a big organization. At the same time, you can also develop your own digital archive for your small library with a small collection. But if you want to develop digital archiving properly, so you need to maintain that 4 stages. That is manifestations. As I said, first you make an inventory or a list. Suppose the library is having 2 lakhs documents, say for digital documents, 2 lakh documents, including books, journals, and everything, databases. And your organization has decided, because as I told you, it's not a charity concept. Digital archiving is not a charity concept. And it has to be sustainable by using fund. If you do not have a fund, suppose you are getting fund for 5 years, so develop short-term preservation approach. Use the short-term preservation approach. In that case, your approach will be slightly different. If you are thinking about the long-term preservation, your approach will be a slightly different from the short-term one. But the process will be the same. First one is a manifestation. Make an inventory, list what you require, what your organization require. Because out of the 2 lakhs document, your committee and your organizations might decide they will go for only 20,000 documents. To keep it sustainable, they require fund, and they have anticipated, and they have a fund for 20,000 documents for 5 years or 10 years. So they will go for only short-term preservation. So first stage is inventory, that is manifestation. And using the checksum checker is a software. By using, you can identify what are the files that might be rotten, and corrupt the rest of the files. You check it up. And the second one, and then third one is a go for the preservation directly, and then change the file formats. It is always advised, as per my suggestions, migration should be done at the ingestion stage. And if you think about the money or to make it most cost effective, so this migration issues can be done when it is needed, when it is accessed by the users, not before, because it is recommended. But if your money is not permitting, your fund is not permitting, certainly it will be a great difficulty for you. And then finally go for a storage. So manifestations, quarantine, preservations, and the storage. So these are the 4 stages based on the conceptual framework of OAIS. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for such a nice explanation, sir. There is another question from one of the participants. Indeed, it's a question and also praise for you. Manush Kumar Ganguly, he's saying, sir, very informative. The IPR issues for digital contents are much more complex. So what are the main focus areas during implementation of digital archives regarding access and related rights?
Very good questions, Manush. As I said, if I ask the same questions to me or to my organizations, I will always go for the develop. Two things should be done simultaneously. First one, the policy development. Policy is the most important thing that drives the necessary funds, necessary infrastructures, and the capacity building measures, and all the components that require to develop a digital archive. So first is the policy development, and then the capacity building of some people who will take the responsibility. Because when there is a question of a trusted documents or trusted depository, there are many issues connected through my own experience. The trust is very important in case of this, not only the digital content who are submitting and who are maintaining the digital document. I have intentionally mentioned the trust for the person who is maintaining the digital documents. Very recently, we have encountered some issues where the documents, in the governmental documents, who is in the charge of administration, they have manipulated the digital documents. And this is why the issues of the digital signature has come very handy. So my suggestion is go for policy making, important policy, standard policy, and then technology and capacity building.
Thank you, sir. I think another question is from the same student, that is Udayan only. He's asking, he's filled with questions today. I think his brain is working very hard. So he's asking so many questions. So how to preserve printed antique books in digital preservation? What do we do in that case? And digital cloning or recreating by OCR? He's asking.
Whatever you carried out, finally it will be manifested as a digital document. You can only put in the digital archive, legal digital archives, after settling the copyright issues. If we do it for our personal purpose or a group of people who are not distributing that material, then it's all right. If you are distributing, or at least you put in the internet or sharing that material from the digital archive based on some paper use or some kind of things, you always go and set the copyright first, be it a printed document or any other archive document or any old document, whatever the thing, first check the copyright issue, whether the copyright is available or not. If copyright is not there, it's a beyond copyright, very good. Straightly go to the public domain, or you can put in the public domain. But still, if there is a possibility to copyright, certainly find out the copyright owner. It's my suggestion. After settling the copyright, it is always go for this digital archive. That is my suggestion.
Thank you. Any more questions from the participants directly to the speaker?
Sir, thank you, sir. I am Ranajit Kumar Mandal, Ghatan Rabindra Shatavarshiki Mahavidyalaya. I have a question. What are the major problems to implement the Indian Copyright Act in various situations in our country? Please tell me something about this.
Thank you, Ranajit, for your questions. But if I ask the same questions to me, what are the basic problem? What have I experienced in the last few years? That our understanding, our and this is why University Grants Commission had to enact one rules, that is a plagiarism act, zero tolerance act. When we are using somebody copyrighted content, we forget that it is somebody's work who has created and who has burnt midnight's oil, to develop this copyrighted content. If we go and have a free ride, certainly the next time the author who has published, who has actually brought this material or content before you and us, will not happen once again in our society. Okay, so copyright awareness and respect others' copyrighted works. If you give respect to others' work, it is very similar to it. You give respect to others, others will certainly respect you. And it's a double way process. It's a very simple equation of life if you think from philosophical point of view. So if you respect this copyright, others' copyright works, your copyright will be protected and respected. And what is the problem? Problem is our mindset. Our mindset, we do not want to use, we do not want to respect other people's copyright. Whatever thing we write in articles, journals, or books, we think that we have created. But we forget that generation of knowledge is kind of relay race. Somebody has developed something. Somebody has invented and wrote some good article. Based on that idea sparked into my mind, and I wrote subsequently. If you respect others' works, all problem will be solved. Our problem is we do not want to respect. And Copyright Act is Government of India everywhere is always developed and enacted for the benefit of the society, not to borrow for any creation. That is the important point. So copyright awareness, promote copyright awareness among your students, and try to use the section 52, that fair use provision which are available for you. Try to make best use of the section 52, what are available. Okay, so that is my suggestions for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Any more questions from the participants? As we have already...
Hello.
yeah.
Hello,
Okay.
ma'am. I'm from Sanjukta from Dept College. Sir, good
Yeah.
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Sir, actually, I want to know, is there any copyright act on the xeroxing of library books? Is there any provision of to xerox our books from Central Library, and what number of pages we can xerox for the student? Is there any guidelines, sir?
Thank you, Sanjukta, for your question. Because of lack of time, I could not discuss, because the copying, there are two types of copying. One is a qualitative copying, another one is a quantitative copying. Suppose I'm giving one practical example. What is a fair use? Suppose a book is written and the book consists of 300 pages. Okay. And I'm not talking about any textbook, I'm talking about the reference book or a research oriented book. Say for if you go to the introduction, so the foreword in the books, you will find that author is claiming that author is telling you that chapter 3 is my core chapter, or the central chapter, heart and soul of the chapter. Okay, and that chapter contains only 20 pages. All over the world, including our University Grants Commission, they have said 10%, within the 10% limit of copying would be permissible. This 10% is highly debatable. Okay, but that 20%, that means you have 20 pages. That means below these 300 pages of the whole book, 10% means 30 pages. But you have copied only 20 pages. And as per law, it should be fair use. But absolutely no. Answer is no. Because you have copied the original idea and the heart and soul of that book. And this would be considered in the court of law as an unfair use, because you have copied the original or soul of the book. And this is why it is called the qualitative copying. And so far your photocopy is concerned and your library, the same procedure would be applied as per the section 52. If you are copying the whole book, it is not permissible under the law. You can make a photocopy. When you are making a photocopy, you should always think about that. It should not go beyond 10%. If you visit Ramakrishna Mission Library, Golpark, you will find that if you want to make a photocopy from a journal or a book, you have to write a letter to the Maharaj, and then Maharaj will try to identify what chapters, what are the number of pages available, and what are the number of pages you require for photocopy. And only then, if it is permissible under the Copyright Act, within the 10% limit, generally within that section ambit of the section 52, only then he permits you. So the same thing applies to you. Try to keep yourself within that 10%. Very strictly, you should not copy that core chapter of that book. That is as per the law.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I know that we are running far behind the time, and already our next speaker is waiting. One more question I can take, only just one question. Tanishka Mohanathan, she is asking that nationalized author books comes under copyright issues.
I didn't get it. National.
The question is like that: whether nationalized author books comes under copyright issues? Yes, I think.
Nationalized author.
Yeah. The question is.
I could not get it. Nationalized.
Actually, I think the question the participant wants to put is that whether all the nationalized books are coming under the copyright. No? That you have already discussed. Yes. Is under the purview of copyright.
Yeah, NBT. If the book is published by NBT, National Book Trust, or a very similar Press Trust of India, or a similar organization, the governmental organization, or interested governmental responsibility, say for a census kind of thing, and the copyright lies with the government. You have to take permission.
Thank you so much, sir, for being for such a long time with us and discussing the entire issues. And it's indeed a great privilege for us also to get you, who is an expert of these IPR acts.
No. I have a little bit interest, Nivedita. I have a little bit interest.
Actually, we know that we are enough fortunate to have you among us. The next speaker, that is Muhyiddin Rifauddin sir. He's waiting for a long time, and I was not at all worried because already Shobuz sir, that is whom I call Shobuzda, he told me that Rifauddin sir is one of his friends. So I could make it waiting. Thank you. Now I would request our student Udayan Ghosh to please introduce our next speaker, Mira Muhyiddin Rifauddin. Udayan, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, all the respected professor and resource person, and very welcome, Sir Mr. Rifauddin. Mira Muhyiddin Rifauddin has created an history, the first university librarian of the Southeastern University of Sri Lanka, with effect from 1st February 2013. Mr. Rifauddin is an experienced university librarian with over 25 years working in both local and foreign university libraries with a diverse multi-ethnic and multicultural patrons. He has also been functioning as the head of the Cultural Museum at the Southeastern University of Sri Lanka since 2001 to date. In addition, he has been serving as a visiting lecturer in the Library and Information Science conducted by University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka Library Association, Southeastern University of Sri Lanka, Fiji National University, Fiji Island, and University of Jaffna. Mr. Rifauddin was on sabbatical leave and working as chief librarian at the Fiji National University Libraries, Fiji Island from February 23, 2017 to May 5, 2018. Mr. Rifauddin is a basically BSc Agriculture Honours graduate from the Eastern University of Sri Lanka and obtained MLSC from the University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. He was designated as a chartered librarian by Sri Lanka Library Association as the Vice President of the University Librarians Association of Sri Lanka. He played an active role in the activities of the association, contributed to the development of librarianship across the country. Extensive travels has been undertaken by Mr. Rifauddin, was attended several international conferences and workshops related to the practice and profession of the library and information science, USA, Germany, Nepal, Fiji Island, and India. He was nominated for the International Visitor Leadership Program funded by United States Department of State and to a number of major libraries in USA, including Library of Congress 2010. He attended the prestigious ALA conference in Washington, D.C., USA in the year 2010. Mr. Rifauddin was served as editorial assistant and published a valuable SEUSL publication entitled Exploring the Sri Lankan Muslims, Selected Writing of M. Mehroob in the year 2015. This is one of the rare and comprehensive works from far recorded in a single volume on the lives of Sri Lankan Muslims. He had honor of serving as the editor-in-chief for the SEUSL's Silver Jubilee souvenir entitled Silver Jubilee Memories of the Southeastern University of Sri Lanka, celebrating 25 years, 1996 to 2021, which was published in 2021. Mr. Rifauddin was many publications to credit and also presented many papers at international and state conferences. He was compiled several bibliographies. He is the first managing editor of the Journal of Management published by the Faculty of Management and Commerce at SEUSL. He has received numerous fellowships, including the 3rd European Summer School in Digital Humanities and Culture and Technology, Volkswagen Foundation, and University of Leipzig, Germany, 2012. International Digital Leadership Program in USA in 2010. Social networking media at US Embassy in Nepal, Kathmandu, Nepal in 2010, IFLA ALP International Conference on Information, Knowledge Management, Health Net Nepal, Tribhuvan University, IMAPS, UK in 2008. Now I would request Mr. Rifauddin to continue with valuable lecture. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Udayan Ghosh. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, because this platform is new to me because I have been using the Zoom. When I try to present my present your entire screen. Do I have?
It was visible, sir. So when you were presenting, it was visible.
Okay, but my screen is not coming because.
It's coming, sir.
Okay. Can you? Is
Yeah,
it visible? My
yeah,
presentation on.
it's
internet?
visible. You just go for the slideshow. It will be okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's visible. International webinar, digital archiving.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's perfect.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all of you from the Southeastern University of Sri Lanka. You are listening to a very informative lecture from Professor Chaudhary. He is very knowledgeable person. He seems to be specialized in expert in intellectual property rights, and also he was discussing about very thorough, informative lectures on digital archiving. So I think so. The time is also 1:40 Sri Lanka time. So you guys have sorry you maybe you feel hungry. So I would like to brief my lecture within 20 minutes. I'll short my lecture. It's better. Okay. Now, first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Sibaji Pratimbasu, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Vidyasagar University, and the organizing committee for their kind invitation. I especially would like to thank Dr. Nivedita Bacharya Sahu, Assistant Professor, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts and a Sri Lankan experience and scenario with regard to your team, international webinar on digital archiving of printed documents in view of Copyright Act's issues and challenges in post-COVID era. I also would like to congratulate the Department of Library Information Sciences, University of Vidyasagar, for having organized this wonderful webinar with these very relevant and hot topics today. I would like to bring greetings from Sri Lanka, especially from LISC community, to the community of the Vidyasagar University and all important dignitaries joined virtually from various parts of the world, especially India. May peace and blessing be upon all of you. Indeed, it is an honor and privilege me to address you at this memorial international webinar to mark celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The title of my speech is Copyright Issues and Challenges Pertinent to Digital Archiving of Printed Documents, a Sri Lankan Perspective. In this lecture, I would like to share the Sri Lankan experience on digital archiving. First, I would like to brief on digital libraries in Sri Lanka, and then I will cover the issues and challenges in digital archiving and the copyright issues, copyright and fair use of the Intellectual Property Act, Sri Lankan Act, and what are the impact and or influence on digitalization of the problems faced by the digital archive professionals. And also I would like to the cover the experience of the library users. What is their view of digital archiving and the librarian's point of view, and what the authors think about digital archiving. And at last, I will cover the publishers, Sri Lankan publishers, what they say about digital archiving. Hope maybe this may be when I'm talking from the small island, you may be interested in the Sri Lankan experience, right? And so due to COVID-19, and you are aware, the countries locked down, like Sri Lanka also, and the university were closed, and the libraries, all the libraries were closed. But after some time, the faculty have decided to conduct the program online because we have to live with the COVID-19. So the faculty started the online teaching, online learning and teaching, but the libraries were closed. So the library also told that we will have to cope with the the faculty, otherwise he'll be left out. So the libraries facilitate remote access to the users by using the technology called Shibboleth access, because we have already had some electronic resources. Almost all the university libraries, some special libraries and national library, they are having their own digital library, and many libraries archives and even the digital archives on rare material and the some folk song, cultural heritage materials, right? And so they were trying to meet the information needs of the customers. But students pursuing the course of studies in vernacular language, especially in Sri Lanka, the Tamil speaking community as well as Sinhalese is a majority, Sinhalese speaking community. So some of the unlike India, all the university programs I heard conducted in English medium. But in Sri Lanka, the social sciences and humanities, the courses conducted in vernacular language. But the students who follow the course of studies in vernacular language face a severe problem because they couldn't find the material in vernacular language. And these are some of the major issues, and now I will try to explain about the digital libraries in Sri Lanka, digital institutional repositories in Sri Lanka, the status of the institutional repositories and developments. Major libraries and research institutions, national library, they have already created and enriched with some of the material. And for the last 10 years, the National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka, they have launched big digitization projects. So the many university libraries and special library, they were able to digitize their contents. Especially they concentrated on the theses, master theses and PhD theses, and the lecturers, faculty members, their intellectual output, their articles, and the journal, our university journals, university conference proceedings, those things mainly they have digitized because they have a fear of digitizing other contents. But the librarians, they have prepared the list of the the rare material which has less or no problems with the copyright issues. They have started that material as well, but they are very particular about the copyright issues. So even though they have digitized some of the contents, they couldn't upload it, and they upload it, but they have not made it available for public, right? And these are some of the special projects. The University of California, they have digitized palm leaf manuscript, large amount of palm leaf manuscript, right? And also my university, we have digitized folk songs, and the rare material like Arabic Tamil, we have digitized and made this available for public. And in Sri Lanka, we have some non-profit organization. They are also interested in digitizing the vernacular languages, and especially the one Noolaham Foundation that was created with the goal of documenting, preserving, and disseminating text and source related to the social, economic, cultural, and political discourse of Sri Lankan Tamil-speaking community. They are concentrating on Tamil-speaking community. They have digitized so many material. What they do is they first approach the author, so they get the permission from the authors, and then they sometimes they approach the the publisher, right? The copyright is with publisher, but some after uploading, some of the publishers, they are concerned about thing, and then after that they have removed, right? And so this is this one, the Noolaham. It's about Noolaham Foundation. So now because in this digital era, the library is confronted with copyright issues and the fair use. Now we will discuss about the copyright issues in Sri Lanka. The copyright is a complicated and issue. Finding an appropriate balance between, on one hand, serving the public interest in developing internet as a tool for information provision, and on the other hand, serving the public interest in developing internet as a tool for information provision. Right. This is the role of the librarian. The librarian is in a dilemma, right? How to, in a balance, because they are responsible to implement the copyright laws as well, right? But at the same time, they are worried about the needs of the information needs of their customers. So they have to balance it between the copyright product, the copyright owners of the copyright, as well as the customers. Right? In legal and policy circle, how to strike an appropriate balance between copyright holders and users is a very important one. Right, copyright is a complicated and sorry. Right, now I just wanted to elaborate a little bit about intellectual property laws of Sri Lanka. And as like India, Sri Lanka also under the British rule, Sri Lanka was a colony, and the intellectual property law was introduced in 1860, long time back, right? And then after the independence, Sri Lanka has revised and introduced the copyright laws number 52, 1979. And presently, we are using the Act number 36 of 2003. The government of Sri Lanka have established the Intellectual Property Office under the Intellectual Property Act number 36 of 2003. So this Intellectual Property Office having the mandated with administration of the intellectual property system, right, which have a mandate to protect intellectual property of the Sri Lankans. Right. Then, so the Sri Lanka, I think I have read some literature. Sri Lanka is the first country in South Asia region adopt these agreements of the TRIPS agreement as well as the WTO. And in Sri Lanka, the infringement of IP rights is a punishable offense. The court always gives grants injection and damages. As far as Sri Lankan copyright laws is concerned, copyright includes all creative and artistic works such as books, movies, music, paintings, photographs, computer program, etc. The right takes two forms. One is economic rights, other one is moral right. And as far as Sri Lankan law is concerned, copyright in Sri Lanka is generally protecting during the life of the author, lifetime of the author, as well as 70 years after his death. The work of Sri Lankan authors are protected in all the member countries of the Berne Convention for the protection of literary and artistic work under the national law of the particular country. This is very important aspect of the intellectual copyright laws, the fair use. The fair use, there is a provision in the Sri Lankan Act. Fair use is the use of copyrighted works without asking permission from the copyright owners. What that looks like in practice varies and depends on analysis of 4 different factors. So if anybody wants to argue that it's not fair use, we'll have to think in these factors. One is what purpose and characteristic of the use, and nature of the work, and the amount used, effect upon the market. These are the factors the judges consider when they give the verdicts, whether to find out whether it's a fair use or the person is violated the copyright. And there is a section in the Sri Lankan copyrights, chapter 1, section 11 and 12. It tells about the fair use. Right. Now, I just wanted to say something about the viewpoint of the publisher as far as digital archiving concerned. In Sri Lankan scenario, is different from, I think, India. In Sri Lanka, only very few reputed publishers who works commercially publish the works of the authors. As far as academic publisher is concerned, very few publishers. But school publishers are the publishers who make school publication, school-based material. They make a lot of money. But these academic publishers, they says the publishing the academic books is not profitable in Sri Lanka, and this they are saying they make only little money. They make money only through book trade because Sri Lanka population is in small, and our population who use the academic works are comparatively low, and they are saying this number of people who buy books and read is diminishing nowadays. And they worried, and their works, the copyrighted contents, downloaded and replicated without permission if the libraries are, digitally archived, and then it leads to, economic loss, right? And they are saying that the students these days, students who use the social media, they scan it and they just share among the groups through WhatsApp, and they are saying some of the photocopying services they do, right? They sell it at a cheaper price, the books, right? But the author's viewpoint is entirely different from the publishers. In Sri Lanka, the majority of the publishing is author publishing, because the author they themselves publish their books. But when I interview some of the popular authors, the author says they are very much interested in granting permission to reproduce their e-version in the public domain. But the publishers are rather reluctant, right? Author says because they are happy to share their works so that they will be popular and many people will make use of the content. Many Sri Lankan universities, national library, non-profit digital archives like nulagam.org have already engaged in agreement with authors. And some of the university libraries, if the publishing and the right is author, they sign an agreement with the authors and they publish some of the content on the public domain. But the publishers argue that some of the authors are not aware about the copyrights. The authors think that as the authors, they have the right, even though the particular book is published by one publishing company, and they are not bothered about the copyright, so they are not aware about the copyright laws. So they infringe right, the intellectual property rights. And the students says a student says even though publisher allege then they are violating the copyrights and cause financial losses to them, they says that it is a kind of fair use for them because they scan it and share among them, and then the photocopying, all those things for the purpose of learning, right? For the fair use, right? So they are saying that we are not non-commercial. Yeah, we are not using for the commercial purpose. We use only for the academic purposes. And they argue that as it is a non-commercial, it should not be considered as an infringement. And also the student says the many books recommended by the faculty members are from the Western countries, and those books are very expensive, and the students are not cannot afford to purchase them. And now I would like to share some of the constraint of the professionals who face some difficulties in digitizing their content. Right? And when I interview the 15 university the librarians who handle the digital archiving, they face the lack of clarity and awareness in Sri Lankan law regarding the fair use, licensing, copyright procedure. This is the major concern they are saying. They are afraid of the copyrights, and they are not aware much about their fair use. And they are saying that the provision is not clear. More clarity is required. And also some of the librarians says that in Sri Lanka, not like other countries, there have not been many court cases established on fair use and copyright. So that is why they are rather reluctant, even though the law is there, because it's not tested in the courts. It's not there is no much verdicts in the courts. And they further says insufficient legal provision or need for a separate laws to cover aspect of digitalization and the creation of digital library. Because they are saying even though the law is 2003, almost 10 years back, the old laws. So the law has to be reevaluated and revisit to the present, to suit to the present environment, especially in the process of the digital archiving. And these are some of the other challenges faced by the professional. They are saying in Sri Lanka, they don't have any comprehensive indexing, abstracting of the contents of such document in national language. Because we will have to have a proper comprehensive the document. And the other one is some of the documents maybe 70 years old. The author has death. It's a very old document. But if it is the case, they can digitize and make it publicly available. Some of the documents very difficulty in locating the authors. Even some of the publishers are no more. The authors, they couldn't locate it, so they are rather reluctant to digitize those materials. Right? And then some librarian says digitizing vernacular language very difficult. And some of them say scarcity of fund for digitization projects and inadequate professional competencies, low priority for digital libraries, inability to obtain scanning equipment due to scarcity and prohibitively high cost, inadequate digital infrastructure. These are some of the challenges and obstacles the digital librarians are facing. Right now, this amidst these difficulties, right? I have studied with the librarian, interviewed them how they have tackled the scenario. They come forward and said the strategy they have adapted to meet the information needs of their clients. First, they say they are posting the learning material recommended by the faculty members to the LMS, because LMS is password protected, it's not in a public domain. So what do? Is they digitize 10% of the material or maybe one chapter, and then upload it in the Moodle. And when a lecturer requested for the next chapter, he removed these particular chapters, and again they have uploaded the second chapter. Right? And then some of the librarians, they are having a password encrypted e-reserve that can be accessible by the students and faculty. And some libraries, they use electronic library sources. They have subscribed to many ebooks, databases, e-journals, and they made it available to off the campus, right, where Shibboleth access. So that made the readers were able to access to the learning material. And some libraries, because faculty members, they also have published some textbooks. So they approach the faculty members. Faculty members allow the libraries because they have some agreement with the publisher. They allow the libraries to digitize their contents and upload it for a certain period of time. These are some internal arrangements. But in conclusion, I would like to say that copyright is a major obstacle and impediment to textbooks digitization in Sri Lanka. Current copyright legislation does not address the digitalization component, including its scanning, storage, make it available in the public domain, network environment, and fair use in digital environment. So, separate copyright regulation for librarians should be developed in order to promote, respect, and comprehend copyright, and to assist librarians to provide good services to the clients while safeguarding the copyright material. And the challenges found in our digital and network environment, Sri Lankan intellectual property law must be evaluated and rewritten for the benefits of the authors, publishers, and librarians. They're saying that we have to find. It's very difficult to balance in between the copyright protectors and the users. Right? So the government has to revisit the current laws and to make it a very suitable one. And in conclusion, I would like to say Sri Lankan government should provide legal, technical, and financial support for the establishment of National Digital Library in the country. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you have any questions, yeah, you can.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for your nice deliberation and excellent speech, actually. So we are indeed grateful to you for accepting our invitation. Now, let us have some quick questions, if it is there in the chat box. No questions as till now. So any of the participants, I would request the participants, if you have any questions, you can directly ask to sir. Sir is there to answer your queries. Participants, please. Don't have any questions? Any one of you?
Yeah, they are tired, it seems, and because of lunchtime.
So, may I ask a question, sir?
Yeah.
One thing. So, that is actually, sir, what we are facing now, that is due to this COVID pandemic, and as the libraries have been closed and all, so there were not enough documents with our students, basically. From the teacher point of view, I'm asking this question. So, what we have done so far is sometimes whatever the materials that were available with us, like that of the books and all, we have just made the scanned copy of those documents and we have supplied them as the materials and all. So is it permissible in your country to do it under your copyright law, or are we violating this law by doing such things? So that is a question from my point as a teacher.
Yeah, as far as our country's law is, there is a provision for fair use, but we can copy it for the preservation purposes, but to share in among the students and publicly, it's a kind of infringement as far as Sri Lankan law is concerned. Yeah.
What do you do if the teachers ask you for this copying, that is the reproduction purpose and all? Do you allow them for the whole book to be reproduced, or the general research scholars or the students, if they ask you for the reproduction and all? Do you allow them for the reproduction purpose?
No, we don't allow them. There is a forms they'll have to complete it, and maximum we'll go for 20% then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only 20% you allow.
Yeah,
At the time
20%
you allow.
Yeah.
Okay.
At a time, yeah.
At the time you allow only 20%.
Yeah, 20%, yeah.
Okay, I think most of the libraries have that rule and all that they allow only a few things. But sometimes actually what the users do, actually they take the books and they just do a duplicate copy, whatever
That's
is
right.
available in the outside shops and all
Yeah.
that we see. So that is our concern also, that whether we are violating the users are violating this copyright law and all. So that's the thing. So any more questions? Our head of the department is there. I can see, sir. Professor Piyush Kanti Jana. He is our head of the department.
Okay.
No, sir. It is okay.
Yeah.
I understand. Almost the problem same in our country and your country.
Yeah.
Almost the rules are same.
Yeah.
What I have got from Professor Chaudhary and from you, it is almost same.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anybody else? So I think there are no further questions. And thanks a lot, sir, for being with us and just accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time and spending a good time with us. Thank you so much. Without any delay, I would ask another very senior faculty member, Professor Durga Shankar Rao, to please deliver the grand vote of thanks. So please.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's our really a privilege to provide a grand vote of thanks to this August gathering here. And we must acknowledge our university authority, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, for patronizing this event. And he was very much instrumental in organizing this kind of great event, international event. And we are very much indebted to our respected Dean sir for his kind consent to inaugurate our seminar, webinar, and delivered a nice lecture at the beginning, which has already set a tune for our seminar. We are sincerely express our gratitude to our esteemed delegates of the webinar for their valuable participation and deliberation. To name our speakers, may I now say Dr. Muhammad Nasiruddin Munshi sir, from Professor, Department of Information Science and Library Management, University of Dhaka, who has illuminated us with his kind deliberations and valuable input in this regard, which will be a great enrichment for our learners as well as the participants who have already participated in this seminar. We are thankful to Dr. Sobuj Kumar Chaudhary, Associate Professor, Department of Library and Information Science, University of Calcutta, for his illuminating lecture. He is an exponent in this particular domain, and he has given his threadbare input to this seminar and already clarified some of the questions raised by our participants. We are very much thankful to Dr. Muhyiddin Mira, University Librarian, Southeastern University of Sri Lanka, who has immense experience in this area, who has been working for a long time in larger setup and experienced the international level different responsibility also he has handled. And in this way, he has struck the right chord of our webinar theme. What we are actually expecting from others, that most of the content which are in English, they are mostly available. All the renowned textbooks already freely available in the open domain, which doesn't arise much problem for our learners. But in some cases where this photocopying or to some extent photocopy of a document were required, those cases also have some legal litigations in University of Delhi and University of our Jawaharlal Nehru University. 2-3 cases were there with Oxford University Press and other. But somehow we are happy to announce here that in all the cases, our learners, those who have not used it for commercial purpose, they were won the legal battle, and finally the fair use theme has been retained. And now what in our case we were expecting more is about our vernacular, which some of the suggestions from our Muhyiddin Mira sir we have got, that had he been come into a thorough discussion with the authors as well as the publishers, those who are holding the copyrights, to put it in the public domain, at least for the looking into these issues, and students can go through them, then the documents in vernacular will have some more access to the users, because most of the learners depends largely on the vernacular documents, which require some kind of permission, some kind of discussions is required. As Muhyiddin sir already described, that authors are more inclined to put their content in the public domain. On the other hand, publishers have their obviously business in mind. But whatever be the case, all over the world, when we are moving towards the copyleft era, probably they will be more inclined one day or other to put it everything in the public domain, which will increase their access, and probably they will be more acknowledged over the world, not only morally, that will be even beneficial for economic purpose also. With these few words, and obviously thanking to our very enriched, technologically enriched person, Mr. Subhendu Kaur, who has been instrumental in organizing this seminar, and all of our colleagues. Especially a special thank is due to Madam Dr. Nivedita Bhattacharya Sau, who has been taken a great pain throughout last few months, rather from the beginning of the inception of our webinar, and finally materializing it. We are really highly indebted to you, madam, and of course to all the participants from all over the country as well as from different parts of the world who has kindly participated and provided their input to enrich our webinar. Thank you one and all, and expecting your kind cooperation in our future endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, who is a very senior faculty of our department as well as the joint convener of this international webinar, the first of its time that we are organizing in this web platform, and also an international one. And indeed, a great thanks to all the participants who have been with us. And thank you to our speakers, Muhyiddin sir and Nasiruddin sir, as well as Shobuzda, whom I call Shobuzda. So all of them, they were excellent, and each and every time I actually asked for their help, they were there, and they replied immediately to my calls. So it's indeed a great experience for me also to organize this program with all the support of my esteemed colleagues who have been very supportive. Madam Smita Seth, Vidyathida, then Shomenda, and nonetheless our head of the department, Piyush Kanti sir, without whose advice, and Durga sir was always there to advise me. So it was a great experience. So may we now finish our broadcast here from here, sir. So we are finishing over here. I would request Shubhenduda, and a great thanks to him, who has been so meticulous about this online tasks and everything, every technicality he has maintained. It's a lot of thanks, a huge thanks to him. So thank you. So I would request now all of you to please leave the platform, and we are just ending with it. Thank you so much. Thanks to all and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shubhenduda, please end the call.
তো ম্যাডাম বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছি।